Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 232 of The Ball is Round. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, we react to CF Montreal hitting rock bottom, Roses FC back in action, and so much more. As always, I'm joined tonight by Mr. Elias Grigoriadis. How are we doing, my man?
That's a loaded question.
Did you watch the Club World Cup like a few hours ago?
No, I was busy doing some other stuff. I just opened my phone. I saw 3-0 Chelsea, and I was like, "But
I'm out.
no,
I'm out.
I didn't actually. No, I mean, look, Real Madrid was out, so the only team I didn't want to win was already out, and everything else, is whatever. I don't love PSG either, obviously for obvious reasons. But I mean, hey, my friend's a Chelsea fan. He was very excited, so.
Look.
I'll take what little sunshine I can find, even if it's vicariously through my friends.
Look, it was a good game. It was a good display. It was a show, Elias. To me, in my opinion, this is my opinion. It was a show. It didn't feel like one of those Champions League. It felt like it was being forced to be a show. They had a halftime show that probably tried to resemble
it for the
right. Yeah, they tried to resemble it as much as a Super Bowl as they could with a heavy halftime show that was on the top of the stadium. I mean, it was good. I'm not gonna say it was bad, but it's like I'm telling you, Elias, I was watching it kind of on the background because we were barbecuing out here. And it was freaking, yes, it was pouring. Those that live in Montreal, it was pouring today. And yeah, we were barbecuing, and then all of a sudden we got whoo. And then I was, my mom wasn't really paying attention, and I used my mom's example because she is not really interested in soccer. And she was kind of like, oh, that's so cool. They're playing. I guess it's a big game. But then she saw the halftime show, and she was like, oh, I'm all eyes. I love it, So
performing? I don't even know who's performing.
Who was I forgot the Latino artist and there were a few artists. I mean, there were big names. J Balvin, I think. Anyways, we're not here for that tonight, but I did want to kind of know what's going on, right? Because it's been a hot weekend. Raining. Apparently, there's floods on the highway. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. But
the 40 shut down.
There is another team that is cold, and we need to talk about that cold team today. Yes, Elias, we have to do it. But before we get started, guys, as always, just a quick reminder that if you listen to the show and like what you hear /see, click on the subscribe button to support The Ball is Round. While you're at it, make sure to also subscribe to all of our social media platforms for daily updates on CF Montreal, Roses FC, Canada Women's and Men's and National Team. Everything. Follow Elias, Andy Coronado on X Blue Sky. All right, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
So,
you okay, Andy? You okay?
Sorry, I gotta. So, Wednesday night, Elias, we met at Stade Saputo because it was, and we had talked about it last week on episode 231 about the importance of the game against Forge FC of the Canadian Championship, the second leg for CF Montreal, and the importance of the game and how it's supposed to be the game of the year. And yeah, I mean, how did you feel before the game, and how did you feel like seeing the lineup? I don't know if you have the lineup there, but how did you feel about the lineup against Forge FC? Now,
it's your starting 11. It's your strongest 11. I think Marco Donadel has not shied away from, sticking to his guns with what he believes is the best 11. And honestly, I had some level of cautious optimism just because, the last few games hadn't gone well, but at least they were starting to get some offense. They were putting some offense together. They were scoring goals. Prince Owusu was in good form. Like, all these things led to a cautious, not a ridiculous, but a cautious amount of optimism. Good evening, LP Habs fan. Again, yeah, it's been a minute. Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back, bud.
Miss you. You're joining on a doozy for the optimistic crowd.
He's gonna have a blast.
But it was kind of just weird, man. The energy was weird. The energy in the stadium was weird. It was very different energy from last year, which was, again, a very similar situation. So I didn't really know what to make of it, but yeah, I had at least some level of like, okay, I guess, question mark.
Yeah. But I mean,
lots of
it was pretty much the same thing, right? Like you're saying, Elias, we spoke about it, the importance, and not just because it's our opinions, Elias. It's I think President Gabriel Gervais has said repeatedly that the Canadian Championship was very, very important to them this year, and Marco Donendel echoed that
Yeah.
sentiment. Even Laurent Courtois echoed it when in his time as a head coach. He echoed how important the Canadian Championship would be this year. So obviously, when you're putting that kind of hype into us, our obvious reaction is to okay, well then show us your best. Show us your best. Show us your best lineup. Show us your best. And who's starting? We got Bryce Duke back from injury. We have Caden Clark on the left wing. I mean Dante Seeley on the right wing, and so it was though. Like you said, it was a starting lineup. The only thing to me was like, okay, really, Bryce Duke as a starter in this important of a game, even though he hasn't played in the past 2-3 months. Not to say that
Tom Pierce had to come off. With all due respect, Tom Pierce had to come off, and the only other player that could play on the left that's not injured is Caden Clark. So someone else has to go in the middle.
Why did he have to come off? What is
Tom Pierce?
Yeah.
I mean, again, he's probably the best crosser of the ball on the team. But besides that, what really did he bring?
Not much, right? Not much.
But he became redundant on the left side with Luca Petrasso. Defensively, he wasn't really doing anything. Again, yeah, your excellent delivery is not enough to guarantee you a starting spot.
But isn't like say recovering Bryce Duke the starter you want to have on the most important game of the year? I mean that's where I was like, I saw the lineup and I said, this doesn't seem like it's our best lineup. But anyways, we'll get into the game. So last year we had a rain delay. You spoke about last year. There was a rain delay, right? That I forgot how long it lasted. It felt like it lasted like
2 hours.
Oh, Jesus, 2 hours. This year, there was the power outage, which Elias, we looked at each other and we're like, oh, boy, this can only happen like here. Like literally a power outage and I think somebody in the press box showed us that the Hydro-Quebec said that it was literally that area. It was just the stadium that went. And that delay took maybe another 30 minutes. Something strange always seems to happen in the Canadian Championship, man. But and there were also questionable calls for the referee, but we don't analyze that kind of stuff in the show. What were your overall thoughts on CF Montreal? So forget about the win or the loss, okay? Forget about the result, even though we have to. Forget about the results. What did you think of their performance?
It's exactly par for the course of the season. It was against more conservative opposition who was essentially playing for a 0-0 draw, but I saw no ruthlessness, I saw no efficiency, I saw no pragmatism. I didn't see anything that told me, oh, this team is in a different league from the other one, right? So I honestly think that no, it was very much what we've come to expect from Montreal, and yeah, they dominated possession. They had the majority of the ball, and it was two, not pot shots because they were very well taken, but it was two kind of prayers from outside the box that ended up being the decider. But why don't you take those pot shots? Why don't you? And we were in the press box during the game and in the media room after it going, I can't think of anyone on the team that could reliably score the goal Tristan Borges or Kyle Becker scored. You put them outside the box and you go, oh, he's going to hit this and he's going to score. I can't think of anyone, right? Dante Seeley has his moments where he with the Trinidad team where he scored against Haiti with a very similar, not similar, but a very nice goal from outside the area. But it's 1 for every 10 shots. I haven't seen anyone else that's reliable enough and has a good enough striker of the ball to actually do that on this team. The only person that has tried consistently from outside the area is Fabian Herbers. It's not like he's back from injury, maybe. But on that field, on that bench, that night, nobody. So.
Yeah, and exactly. I felt the same way. It was just a game where they, I don't think Forge FC necessarily was better than CF Montreal. I don't think, tactically or just the quality of the players. I don't think they were higher than CF Montreal. But the only thing that Forge FC showed more than CF Montreal on Wednesday night was bravery in defense and bravery in goal, in front of goal. So This is something that CF Montreal they played a little, and you mentioned it, right? It was the theme of the whole season where they have constantly show like doubt in themselves and their skills, and maybe pass it to the next guy, and maybe just center it to Prince Owosu. Like it just always seems like guys that have been in doubt, and we mentioned it in the show before. It always seems like CF Montreal kind of puts themselves at the level of their opponents, right? They don't really say, go into the field and say we are better than you. We are an MLS team. It really felt like they went to the CPL level and they just weren't brave. And is it a lack of talent and all that? It's hard to tell right now. I liked CF Montreal's performance. I did. I thought they dominated, and from the get-go, I think they scored early on. They scored pretty early on that first goal, but it was just the collapse right after that really was. Not only was it like sad and frustrating, but it was also like this is so well deserved. Like kind of summarizes the season, because this is maybe the slap in the face that the club deserves due to their poor performances the past 3 years. I mean, it's been a downward spiral, and there's been a lot of staff that have left the team for better opportunities or whatever it may be, and it's just felt like a big downward spiral where they've like really haven't been able to put one and one together when it comes to players and games. And I just think that this is pretty much the Forge FC elimination is pretty much shows what a result of all that. And it's embarrassing because then they show up last night in Orlando and it's like a different team. And we'll get into that game of the Orlando FC, but it's just why is it that you see two different teams with different attitudes, with different kind of level of play when it's like the same team, but within days of each other? So it didn't really make sense.
Because
Obviously,
they're not driving the bus. They didn't drive the bus last night. They have to drive the bus at home, because in MLS, people show up. I mean, except for teams like, Cincinnati or Columbus or Miami or top teams will show up to, an away game and say, here's the ball, break us down. Montreal does not have the quality to do that yet, right?
Yeah.
They need a significant influx of players and quality to become a team that can consistently break opposition down. What they can do is stay organized defensively, bide their time, frustrate the opponent, and hit back on the counter, which is what they did in Houston, which is what they did in New York, which is what they did in Chicago, which is what they did in Orlando. And again, we're going to get to the Orlando game in more details, but that is the thing. This is a very organized and disciplined team when they don't have anything else to do. When they don't have, 50, 55, 60% of the ball, when they don't have the expectation that they have to be dominant and control the tempo of the game, when they don't have another team in front of them playing such a low block, all of a sudden the game becomes simple to them because they are a relatively straightforward team. Whether it's Marco Dondel's tactics or the squad he inherited, that is the way they're playing. It's a very straightforward, it's very fundamental football. And when they're on the road, they do it very well. But the second you have any kind of nuance that's needed, like the nuance needed to break down a low block or navigate, the intricacy of a two-leg tie, this team cannot keep up. So I seriously think that this Orlando game is it's the reason why they have a better record on the road than they do at home. Because simply put, playing on the road is much simpler from a footballing perspective, right? You're taking the tactics and atmosphere and all that stuff, it's different. But from a footballing perspective, playing on the road is much more simple than playing at home. So yeah, I'm not gonna say they thrive. They only have 8 points on the road, but they definitely look more comfortable.
Yeah, and it also. But speaking of comfort, because they also played a terrible game, in my opinion, in the first leg at Hamilton, and it was I don't have the lineup in front of me, but I do think that they was a completely different lineup than the one we saw on Wednesday night, and it was just one of those things that they knew what they needed to do to get out of this hole, to win this game on Wednesday night, but they just didn't have the pieces to do it. They knew exactly what the end goal was. And look, I tweeted out on Wednesday night, Elias. I don't know if you saw him, but I know I saw Joey Saputo go down to a locker room, and he was furious. Now, does this mean anything? I don't know what was said. I don't know what was done. That's all I can tell you. That's all we know. We don't know what it means for the future of this team. We have no idea. But where does Montreal go from here after this loss? Because Elias, we talked about a lot on the show, is Gabriel Gervais mentioned it. The point of the goal of this club this year is to win a trophy, and the Canadian Championship is probably the easier one. I'm not going to say the easiest,
for sure.
The most attainable. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. The most attainable. And now it's no longer something. As of yesterday, we're in the wooden spoon position. So we are very far from that. So where does CF Montreal go from here? What does CF Montreal do for the rest of the season?
We talked about this last week. What if they lose? What happens? We discussed it. You only play players you expect to have next season. That's it. Chan saying, "Hey guys, because CF Montreal is bad, they are a lack of quality, no consistency, no leader. You can expect that with a rookie manager and a bunch of ordinary players." Well, I mean, they have leadership. Let's give people like Samuel Piet and Joe Waterman and even Jean-Paul Siowa their flowers. They've been exemplary leaders both on and off the field. The problem is, leadership doesn't win you games. Leadership doesn't win you points. But you only play players that you expect to have back. If you even have like the slightest bit of doubt, I mean, if you doubt a player should come back next year or not, if you're debating his option year or to release his contract, then yeah, you can obviously see what he has to bring. Players tend to try a bit harder when their livelihood is on the line.
Yeah.
But players, you're like, I know you're not coming back next year. I don't even want them on the bench. I don't even want them on the bench unless every other player in their position is unavailable for whatever reason. I don't even want to see them on the bench because, frankly, this is officially the start of the preseason for the 2026 season. These are all preseason friendlies now. This is exactly what it is. Your only objective is LP Hassan saying, I don't know if they have enough players to have an 11 if they fit that criteria. I think they've got a decent 14 players that can come back next year. But that's it's a bit of an exaggeration, but it isn't really. But this is essentially the beginning of the 2026 preseason. These are all friendlies. And your only objective this season is play those players and don't finish last. And you're already last. So it literally can't get worse than this.
Yeah, and Robbie, thank you so much for joining us. He said hi a little bit earlier. Thank you, Robbie, for being with us tonight. He says, play better soccer if possible. Last night was a bit better, and we'll get into the game. But yes, absolutely. That's all I'm saying, Elias. And I
believe that game because LA won, and now they're in last place. So even a half decent performance is still rewarded with a slap in the face. I can't even be like, yeah, nice. Okay.
This is why this is why we have the title of the show, right? CF Montreal hits rock bottom. Whether they did it themselves or not, it's not relevant. They're rock bottom, literally. No, eliminated in the Canadian Championship, and the same week they end up being last place in the MLS. I mean, anyways. But yeah, what I want to see moving forward, Elias, kind of in the same page as you, is I want Marco Donadel to start having fun. Start experimenting. Start having fun. Throw new schemes, throw new players, throw new combinations. There's no pressure at this point. At this point, like you said,
about this season is going to be fun, Andy. I understand what you mean, but you need a different word than fun.
I mean,
I want to see a mad scientist, but I don't want fun is not the right word, man.
Man, when you have fun, you can. When I'm saying you have fun, you can experiment and all that. Obviously, there's risk to it. It can mean that you can lose 6-0 against a team. It can happen. But at least you're trying out something new. But if you continue deploying Caden Clark as the number 10 or as a left winger, and it doesn't work, it just doesn't work, then get Odger Escobar more minutes. Fabian Herbert, I don't care. I'm targeting Caden Clark specifically, and we'll talk about the Orlando game. But there are players like that, like you said, that are simply not performing. Samuel Piet said in the Pulse press conference, he said it. There are players in this club that are not underperforming. And he's not saying the ones that are in the stands. He's saying the ones that are on the field. And so yeah. But I am gonna continue using that word. I want him to have fun because Elias, in every post-game, pre-game press conference right now, I don't think I've seen Marco Donadel smile in a bit. Except when he was kind of going that back and forth with Maxime Truman, and it was a sarcastic laugh, obviously.
No, he smiled when Owusu scored the first goal against Forge. I saw it. I think he smiled a little bit.
He smiled when that
Mauro Biello, man. I swear to God.
When he smiled is when that other Forge FC assistant coach got kicked out, got the red card at the end of the game. He was like,
No, they were losing already.
I know. He was like, okay, well, at least we win this one. At least we won that. So, anyways, but did Forge FC deserve this one, in your opinion?
100% they did. They did everything they had to do, except concede in the 60th minute. But it's also kind of unfortunate because you had a 20-minute break. But they're still unbeaten this year, right? They absolutely deserve this. Yeah, they are 100% deserving to be finalists, let alone semifinalists for the Canadian Championship. They're by far the best team in the best club, the best run club, the best club over any amount of time in the CPL. And you can go back to the beginning and they're still the best club. And I think that, look, you could argue if you beat a team in a higher division once, it's a fluke, but you do it back-to-back seasons and you do it this convincingly both times. Yeah, 100% they deserve it. So I honestly think that I'd love to see Forge win the whole thing. I think it's going to be Vancouver again, obviously, but they've got injuries, they've got fatigue. It's very possible that a CPL team could win. It's guaranteed for the first time because there's 3 CPL teams in the semis. Guaranteed for the first time ever that a CPL team will be in the final. That's not the first time, but it's the first time it's guaranteed. I think that there'll be a CPL team in the final, which I think is awesome. So, yeah, I for one can't wait to see what Forge do because they're so deserving. They're so good.
And I think Bobby Grigoriadis also said in the post-game conference, right? Like he said, guys, that the quality is there. Like the difference with CPL and MLS is not the quality, but the financials. There is quality in CPL. And I think by saying, Bobby Grigoriadis has proved it year and year again, not just 1 year, like you said, not a fluke. He's mentioned, he's proved it over and over again that CPL teams are competitive and they can, beat MLS teams. So it's worth it. The CPL teams need to be taken seriously, and they need to be taken a little bit more seriously by CF Montreal players, not the club. The players need to start taking those games a little more serious and compete as they did with Orlando. Now we do have a few people that said a few comments here. Tate said, "What about the Leagues Cup? There's still a chance for something, right?"
You're playing Puebla, who are last year's champions, and they're playing Club Leon, who didn't play in the Club World Cup, but they were good enough to qualify for it. And then they had to withdraw, but they were still good enough to qualify. And then even if you do get out of the group stage, you still have to beat MLS teams. So, I mean, yeah, it does qualify you for CONCACAF and all of that stuff. You're right. But
it's rough.
Scale your expectations back. Another interesting thought brought up by Chan and LP House fan is, I don't think Marco Donadel will be a coach in 2026. This season is pretty much wasted. I mean, can you really blame Marco Donadel for the hand he's been dealt? I'm not saying that, if you stick with him, he'll turn into Wilfried Nancy and everything's going to be amazing. But as far as reasons to not blame a coach, the quality of the squad on top of the injury hand he's been dealt, basically the day he took over, even before that, if you take into account the fact that Vrioni and Neil have not had more than a healthy month all season, I can't say I blame him. Has he done enough to warrant a second year? I think he's also fighting for a job at this point. I think he's also trying to prove that he can coach this team. But this preseason that we're considering the rest of the season is also effectively a tryout for him, right? He's got to prove that he can coach, he can unite this team, he can kind of get them back on track. On track being like, not actively horrible and losing every game or, celebrating a draw. But I think that he is capable. He's a much more positive coach football wise. He's a much more positive coach than Laurent Courtois is. He just needs a better group around him. So if they actively, improve tactically and substitution wise, he's been concerning this. Well, again, you look at who's on the
young.
bench.
He's also
You look at who's on the bench substitution wise, right? You can't be upset because they have two defensive midfielders.
They're misfits,
Everyone
Elias.
else,
They're misfits.
but that's the thing. You can't be upset at the substitutions that Marco Donadel is making when that's all there is. At one point, they had 5 outfielders. How are you going to get mad at substitutions when that's all he's got? All these players that are realistically not MLS caliber. If that's all that's there on the bench because George Campbell's unavailable, Jalen Neal's unavailable, Giacomo Vrioni's unavailable, Henade Sinchuk and Jorge Escobar were either unavailable or not yet ready. I mean, we'll talk about Jorge Escobar for the Orlando game. But all these things, if you're forced to sub in people that are out of shape, out of form, haven't played more than 20 minutes in a game in God knows how long, then they're not going to look good. But at the same time, you can't run your players for 90 minutes every single game because, that shit is just not sustainable. No. So, look, if they bring in proper reinforcements, I mean MLS caliber reinforcements and starting MLS caliber reinforcements, and he still can't, make anything happen, then I think that's a 100% valid discussion to have. But if he gets in a bunch of good players, and yeah, you struggle for a couple games because they take time to gel, but then they kind of hit the ground running, and I'm not saying they make the playoffs because let's be realistic here, but they at least put a run together. Right? I'm not saying 10 games in a row, just put a run where they are consistently the better team than the opposition. Then yeah, I think he's earned the right to say, look what I can do with an actual quality, competent MLS team.
Yeah, and I think that's something because we I've been critical sometimes of Marco Donadel's substitutions, but his tactics, as far as I'm concerned, he's doing with what he can because, like you asked, Elias, what else is he supposed to do? I mean, yes, all these players are professional soccer players. They show up to work and they do their best. You can see it. But I've always been with this mind. This season, to me, 2025 has been a group of misfits. It was a group that was made to fit with Laurent Courtois' scheme at the beginning of the season. Laurent Courtois was let go. Then Marco Donadel came in as an interim, which he still holds that title, and he completely shifted things around. One prime example would be Caden Clark. He does not fit in this scheme. They've tried him in different positions. And even before they changed the scheme with Laurent Courtois, Caden Clark was not being played in the position he was being played in 2024. I think he started a few games as a left wing back. If I'm not the first few games, right, of the season as a left wing back,
like 1 or 2 games. That was a weird time,
and it was because there were very rumors about maybe the way he was. The impressions the coaches got from him when he came back from international duty, but that's not here or there. What I'm saying is, once you decided to make that change, you are pretty much putting an end to a project that was started in 2019 when Olivier Renard joined the team, and he was the one that's said that he wants to play in this formation and build the roster that way. Now, speaking of end of projects, we had a rumor today, Elias, right? We had a rumor by Tom Bogert.
Tom Bogert? No.
Tom Bogert. Bogert?
You have a better Wilfried Nancy impression than I do, but yes.
So, Tom Bogert today said, along with Ben Jacobs, that breaking, West Brom are finalizing a deal to sign American defender George Campbell from the CF Montreal per sources. Campbell, 24, has 1 cap with the U.S. men's national team. Key starter for Montreal the last few years. Now, Elias, last night, you actually broke the news that George Campbell was not there in the squad. And there were no updates yet. And he traveled with the team. And everybody was like, what the fuck? What just happened?
We all know what that means.
So we're like, what the
We
hell?
all know what that means. Come on.
And obviously, you tweet that right before the game. You're like, "Phew, what's happening right now?" Right? Yeah. Like we just got CF Montreal just got eliminated of the Canadian Championship, and now we got George Campbell. So gone. Which, if there's any bright spot to 2025, it would be that there's still players being transferred over to Europe, especially of the caliber of Nathan Saliba and George Campbell. We said it at the beginning of I think 2 months ago, right, Elias, when we were already going on a downward trend. We said, stop focusing on wins, focus on progression and the players being sold. And it's happening. It's happening now, right? Obviously, it's, when I went to practice and I saw him practice and you went to practice as well, and we saw games, right? He was at another level. I stand by that. I believe George Campbell was playing at next level,
100%.
Except obviously
100%.
against the GOAT of Lionel Messi, where he had a very tough game. But beyond that, he had an excellent season. And his progression from when he was signed, remind me again, was it 2021 that he got signed?
2022.
2022. His progression under 3 different head coaches has been incredible. And he has literally been the definition of what this development plan of the club is. He has gained his minutes, and at the same time has also changed schemes. And the change of schemes hasn't impacted his development like it did for, say, someone like Fernando Alvarez. So this is well deserved, in my opinion. This is great. This is a great deal for CF Montreal to have made this. But obviously, it leaves a big question mark in the center back section. So, what are your thoughts on the whole George Campbell situation now that he, when Tom Bogert and Ben Jacobs pretty much tweet something out, it's
just that, this is 100% deserved. First of all, George Campbell has been far and away the best player on this team. I think he leaves tomorrow. He'll probably still win MVP and Defensive Player of the Season awards 100%. At the end of the year. I don't think he'll be in the country to accept them, but he will definitely win them. Maybe he'll accept them over Zoom. Who knows? But 100%, he's been far and away the most consistent and the most impressive player. And, even last year where he was okay, right? He was definitely solid. The arrival of Jalen Neal was like, okay, so he's gunning for George Campbell's spot. That was the impression at the beginning of the season. Not Fernando Alvarez necessarily, but George Campbell is of the 3 of Campbell, Waterman, and Alvarez. Campbell was the one who seemed like his position was the most at threat by the arrival of Jalen Neal. And then he did a complete 180 and said, I'm just going to become the best player on the team. So I think that with all the work he's put in and the enormous, he took a big step last year, but when you compare it to the multiple steps on multiple facets of his game that he's taken last year, I am insanely impressed with the workload and with just the quality that he's been able to execute for so many games in a row. Because remember, he started the season with a groin injury, and then he followed that up with a long string game, and then he had his hamstring injury where he missed a couple games, including, the first game of the Forge tie. But he was instantly, he jumped back in the lineup, and then he kept on dropping. Oh, Andy appears to have left us. But he kept on dropping. Oh, and he's back. There we go. Andy's computer died, didn't it? Andy? Can you hear me? Andy, can you hear me? Blink twice if you're being held against your will. Oh, he can't hear me. I can you hear me, Andy? No. Now you're muted. I don't know if we're having technical difficulties, folks. I apologize. I think Andy's laptop died or something. And now I don't know if he can hear me. Now he's just completely cut off from human civilization. Anyway, back to George Campbell until Andy joins us. But, you take a look at not just the steps he's taken, but the fact that he became the go-to guy for some of the most difficult assignments at the beginning of the season when things were going poorly. And the fact that, you look at, for example, someone like Christian Benteke, who for basically every single other game that he's played against Montreal has been, their white whale, has always found a way to score. Then George Campbell kind of pulls up and says he finally puts a stop to it. I think that that's incredibly impressive. I don't know if Andy can hear us,
I
but I
can.
think I can hear it. Oh my God,
Yes,
he's back.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
Praise the
sorry. I don't
Lord.
know if you guys see around me, complete power outage. I'm so
I
sorry.
was this close to opening up the phone lines, Tate. I swear to God, I'm not doing
I'm
an
so
hour podcast by myself. I'm fully like,
Look,
taking a new
we're
silent.
gonna improvise. I'm sorry, guys. The weather in Montreal has been really crap, and so bear with
Did your
us.
power go
Elias,
out?
I really, huh?
Did your power go out?
But power outage, complete power outage, man. I'm not even
Oh
kidding. Look at this.
shit!
This is my computer, completely out. I'm
Oh
completely out.
shit!
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, judging with the state of my power grid at this point, it's very touch and go with whether or not that happens to me too, because my power grid is
This
abysmal.
is gonna be
Anyway,
great. We're we're on survival mode, just like CF Montreal season, man. So we're gonna do our best
there we
to
go.
make this work today.
Exactly.
So we were talking a little bit about George Campbell, and I'm sorry, guys. Usually we try to be as organized as possible, but it does look like U.S. Tatsupuro might as well be because it followed me here. Jesus, the worst thing, Elias, is that the whole day I really thought the power was gonna go out with the bad weather, and now when it's literally
Yeah,
dry and everything's looking great around me, it freaking goes out. So this is
that's how they
gonna
get you, man. That's how they get you.
so yeah, so sorry about that interrupting you. So yeah, George Campbell definitely has shown great progression. We talked
Yeah.
about it, but Elias, let's get right into it. And again, guys, I'm sorry if it seems a little bit disorganized, but I'm working on my phone now instead of my computer. So let's get right into the Orlando game.
Let's
And you
do
have
it.
the starting lineup for us.
Yes, I do, Andy. There's the starting lineup. Yeah. So
Okay.
in goal we had Jonathan Sirois. A very interesting back four. But knowing what we know now about George Campbell, not too surprising. Fernando Alvarez and Brandon Craig, get used to seeing them together a whole lot until Jalen Neal returns from injury. If there's no one else to you know help Joe Waterman out in the midfield department, but you got wingbacks of Luca Matrasso and David Bugai. Again, do not be surprised if they will be manning the ship for a while. Midfield three for once. Not the deviation from the usual 4-2-3-1. It's a 4-3-3 with Joel Waterman, Samuel Piet, and Victor Loturi in the middle. Then Hinari Sinchuk getting, I think, his second start in all
Yeah.
competitions. On the right, Caden Clark on the left, and then obviously the one and only Prince Owusu up top. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too surprised with this 11 again, except for George Campbell. Everything else seemed kind of unsurprising.
Yeah. I mean, look, I wasn't too surprised, but I did like the fact that more than anything, I was surprised about who was in the bench. Seeing Oger Escobar and seeing Fabian Harberts back then, I was like, this is going to be exciting because it finally looks like Marco
Uh-huh.
Donadel is giving himself the ability to experiment a little bit, right? So I really like that. I thought that was that was great, and I was pretty excited. So, what were your impressions of last night of Jonathan Sirois and the back line? Because we talk about in general like the defense and goalkeeping. How'd you like it? How'd you like the performance against Orlando?
I think it was a very capable performance. I think they did what they had to do, which was make the game as dull and straightforward as possible. And the backline did just that. I mean, it was a pretty inventive and surprising free kick. I think it caught Jean Dossier off guard, definitely caught the wall off guard. So I think at that point you just gotta go like, you know what, you gotta tip your cap. That was just well executed. But for the rest of the game, really, any half chance, any potential scoring opportunity was immediately snuffed out. So I think that, they did exactly what was expected of them. It wasn't a historic performance for the ages, but they definitely did the job. And so yeah, I really liked what they brought again with Brendan Craig especially.
Yeah, and speaking of Brandon Craig, like again, we talked about it unexpectedly, right? We had that George Campbell rumor come up recently and today, essentially, which puts that much more importance into Brandon Craig and Jalen Neal. Jalen Neal, we have no idea. I haven't received an update as to when he'll be back, but it puts a lot more importance into them and their development. It kind of speeds it up in a sense, which I don't think CF Montreal is too like gonna be too angry about, because that's essentially what their project is about. So what do you think of their performance? We'll focus mostly on Brandon Craig because he's the most one that we can look at last night's performance. What did you think of his performance, and how do you like his development in the past few weeks?
Again, it's very easy to draw the parallels to Joel Waterman, given their profile and given just the fact that they do get put into the midfield sometimes. They do get, they do share a lot of the same responsibilities with regards to where Marco Donadel trusts him. Um, and honestly, I think that this George Campbell departure, he may be the biggest winner out of everything. If they don't bring in any more reinforcements, if they go, this is the center back core that we're sticking with until the end of the season, he may be the biggest winner, because Joel Waterman has already been established as, one of the non-negotiable stars of this team. But if Jalen Neal keeps having a hard time staying fit, then he's already surpassed in my eyes. I mean, also, I feel like in Marco Dondel's eyes, he's already surpassed Fernando Alvarez in the depth chart. And
A
he's
hundred
starting over
percent.
him, and he'll be used as a substitute over him, even if Jalen Neal comes back. So he may end up being the big winner out of all of this. And again, I kind of want to go back to it because of how underwhelming they all were in training camp, at least from the Marie Victorin leg of training camp. But Dante Sealy, Luca Petrasso, and Brendan Craig were all three of them trialists, and all three of them looked positively meh. And now all three of them have, for one reason or another, found themselves in positions that they're incredibly important members of the squad. So, and honestly, Dante Sealy, yeah, he's not, lighting it up completely, but he's one of the few sparks in this offense when nothing else really is generating creativity. Luca Petrasso has quietly been one of the most reliable players this season, and now Brendan Craig is poised to cement himself as, at the very least, a competent rotational player in MLS. So look, you got to tip your cap. You can criticize as much as you want within reason, right? And for very good reason. But sometimes you got to tip your cap. And all three trialists have, in terms of bang for your buck, have been excellent.
But do you think they're more, because now we're kind of jumping into positions, right? I wanted to start with the defense and goalkeeping, but when you talk about the trialists, because it's kind of in the same thing, do you think these trialists in any other MLS team, as talented as they've shown to be for CF Montreal, would be better as backups, or would they be MLS starters?
I think at least Luca Petrasso and maybe Dante Sealy to a certain extent have shown that they can be competent MLS level rotation players. Right?
Yeah.
I think at a top competitive MLS team, I don't think the three of them, I don't think they start, or they're fighting for their lives to keep, a starting position. I think Luca Petrasso is probably, of the three, the most likely to find a starting spot. But I think that all three of them, and Petrasso and Sealy more specifically because they've had more minutes and more exposure, have shown that they can at least be effective and reliable in their position. And so if you need them for a short amount of time, for a short burst of energy, for a more competitive MLS team, I definitely think that they hold a certain amount of value. And so for the contract that they currently have, CF Montreal did a fantastic job on that. Problem is that that's kind of the high point of the recruitment, which is a problem in and of itself.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like the way I saw Dante Steely perform yesterday, and we'll get right into the attack in a bit because we do want to compare the performances of the prodigy child, Hennedy Senchuk in the attack, and then we'll get into rest. But let's talk about the midfield, okay? Because I know we got a little bit into deviated with the trial list, but let's talk about the midfield. So we had Samuel Piet. We had Samuel Piet and Victor Lotori again. Samuel Piet continues fighting a sickness. I don't know what it is. I don't think they're like the coaches know very much. It has something to do with him having he has vertigo essentially, which is really affecting his performances. And it's a give or take how he's gonna feel in game days, right? And how he's gonna feel throughout the game. But Victor, and then there was, and we do talk about the subs. There were, and we didn't talk about the subs with defense and alpha. I don't know if there was any substitution in particular, because there was Alexander Guboglu who kind of changed from left winger to right back. Then there was, I think, was Luca Petrasso taken out? I'm forgetting right now. I'm blanking. But
Luke Matressa was subbed out, I believe, or was it David Bugai?
and then
It was
Tom
both of
Pierce
them.
played left back, I believe.
Both of them. Pierce and
Yeah.
Gbogu both did shift at fullback this last night instead of winger.
Did they? So before we get into midfield, was there anything that impressed you in particular about any of the subs? Anything that stood out? If it didn't, that's okay.
Any of the
Because
sub
I can't say anything.
offensively, no. But one of the subs I think deserves a certain amount of praise is Fabian Herbers.
Yeah,
Right?
we'll get to it. We'll get to it. I wanted to know defensively. Defensively, if anybody
no.
impressed you.
Defensively, no.
No. Okay, perfect. So let's get into the midfield, right? So yes, as you mentioned, Fabian Herbert was a substitute. What do you think of the dynamic of Samuel Piet and Victor Loturi? What were your thoughts on yesterday's game on how they were doing?
I mean, look, for the little that Samuel Piet can play, it's clear that he's still a super important piece of this team. He's still the best pivot they have. And he does a lot of the running that Joel Waterman just can't. Him and Victor Loturi kind of make up for the fact that Joel Waterman just doesn't cover as much ground as the other two. So yeah, I think that honestly, I like their game, man. Like I said at the top of the show, they thrive when the game is extremely simple and their job is to frustrate and discourage attack. And that's music to Samuel Piet's ears. And Victor Loturi is basically Samuel Piet in training. So I think honestly that they had a good game. They did exactly what was requested of them. Of course, Samuel Piet's foul led to the goal, but free kick from there, shit happens. You're gonna take that, whatever. You're a defender, you're gonna commit fouls sometimes. That's whatever. But over the course of 90 minutes, both of them, 45 minutes for Samuel Piet, but 90 minutes for Victor Loturi again. I was really happy with what we saw, and 100% deserved Victor Loturi the minutes he's getting right now. There was concerns when Nathan Saliba was leaving that, oh my God, Victor Loturi is his replacement. But hell, he's been making up for any kind of shortcomings technically with just so much running and such a great work ethic that he's forcing himself into this conversation because he's doing something that nobody else can do. And yeah, Tay Brooks talking about vertical enough fun, big props for playing through it. Yeah, and that's also why I kind of took umbrage to the fact that, CF Montreal has no leadership. That's not true. With what, for people who have vertigo or who know people with vertigo, that's playing professional level soccer with that going on is crazy. Yeah. So again, huge chapeau to Samuel Piet and all the stuff, and he's doing media and he's doing everything, and he's doing the stuff Samuel Piet normally does on and off the pitch. Honestly, good for him, man.
I mean, look, after as critical as the fans have been and media has been towards CF Montreal, especially after that Forge FC loss, who came to answer questions to defend about the team? The guy with vertigo, Samuel Piet, and he answered it honestly. He was very thorough. He did not hide away from any answers. He was obviously very emotional and angry. It was a very heavy. And I know I'm going back to the Forge FC game, but it goes outside of the field, his impact and what he does. Guys, I do want to say I'm very sorry if I'm having slow connections or anything. I don't know what's going on today, Elias. I'm sorry, but if we might not right now, but we might cut the show a little bit shorter than we had probably planned just because we're having so much technical issues. So we do apologize for that. We're just going to finish with the Orlando game, Elias, and then we're just going to call it a show for tonight. Okay. Just because we're having a lot of issues, but yeah, so we're going to move on. So yes, I absolutely agree with you, Elias. We're going to go. I think that Samuel Piet, whatever percentage he's giving the team right now, you can call it 60, 70. We really don't know. Samuel Piet still plays at a Samuel Piet level when he's on the field. So we're not seeing any of those effects. But for sure, I mean, if the coach is saying it and he's saying it, how terrible he feels. I mean, he was in the hospital on Thursday it's not fun. And like as I just mentioned, right? So mad props to him for still giving his 100% in a very tough moment of the year. Victor Loturi seems to have found his gear, have found what works for him. I mean, yesterday in the Orlando game, there was a particular moment that I remember that he took on, I think, 5 Orlando guys just by pure technical skill. And the commentator from Apple TV was saying that, Loturi continues showing game after game his intelligence and his knowledge of the game and how he reads the game. And it's very impressive on both ends of the field. So But these guys can't do it all. It's gonna happen that these guys get injured. Samuel Piet gets vertigo, whatever it may be. Like it could happen. But the thing is, like, then you had the sub Fabian Herberts, and to me, in my opinion, it's almost like, wow, what a game changer. Fabian Herberts had a game as a midfielder. He looked like he hadn't missed a beat. And I think it's very important. Something that we saw at the beginning of the season was his connection with Prince Owusu. They had said it, and they had said it during the press conference. They had said that, I think it was Fabian Herberts, when they interviewed him, that he said that that he connects really well with Prince Owusu, and they're trying to see that in the field and all that. And it's like we finally saw it yesterday. Two players that are well in shape, and yeah. So I thought that was impressive, and I thought it was important to note that. How do you like Fabian Herbert's impact? How do you like his game? I think he played maybe some 20 minutes, but what a change! I mean, incredible.
Yeah, everything changed when he came on the field, and it's unfortunate for Caden Clark because the best version of Caden Clark is a guy that gets on the ball and he's active and he's contributing, and he just wasn't getting on the ball at all last night.
Horrible game.
Yeah, it's he couldn't seem to get into the groove. He couldn't seem to combine with anybody. And if you're gonna have that version of Caden Clark, it's not the same guy. It's really not the same level of player.
Yeah.
And you replace him with Fabian Herbers, and almost instantly, it takes him 10 minutes to create a penalty, and his not even 10 minutes to create a penalty, and his impact is immediately felt. His impact
sorry to cut you off. Didn't they sub in Ogier Escobar for Caden Clark, or am I wrong? It wasn't Fabian Herberts that replaced him. Fabian Herberts replaced somebody else in midfield. He was a Samuel Piet.
Herberts replaced Sinchuk, I believe.
No.
Or Sinchuk or Piet, I think. But he did go out to that left side, which is when, he came on, and then 9 minutes later he created the penalty by linking up with Prince Owusu, right? And it's just, when he had such a good run of form before his hamstring injury, and then he came back, and it looks like he hasn't missed a beat. So, again, he's probably one of those players that's coming back next year, right? Just for sheer experience and MLS experience and reliability, versatility, right? Any kind of adjective you want to throw at him, he's got it. So I think that he's definitely coming back next year, and he brings that creativity and that quality, that execution on the left side that hasn't been there since he was injured. They've been looking for a replacement, and nobody's been able to shine his shoes. So yeah, the fact that he's back is a total game changer, especially with these road games that are so tricky to navigate sometimes.
Yeah, and it was, and beyond that, something that I think this team has been lacking severely the past few months has been experience. And the experience Fabian Herberts bring in such an important game, such as the one in Orlando, it was obvious and it was necessary. And again, another player that might actually be a diamond in the rough that CF Montreal has found, as we mentioned the try list a little bit earlier. Let's finish it off with the attack, right? Because there was we start with Prince Owusu. On the right side, we had Henry Senchuk, and on the left side, we had, why am I forgetting right now? Because at the 10, we had Caden Clark, and on the left, we had...
I mean, it was a 4-3-3, right? Victor Latour was kind of filling that role, but he was...
Okay.
It was a 4-3-3, let's be honest.
All right. So we had that, and then as a sub, we had, at halftime, Ogier Escobar, right, doing his MLS debut, and then we had Tom Pierce eventually come in as well. What'd you think? What'd you think of the attack without the subs? Just the attack, because I thought, in my personal opinion, I thought Caden Clark had probably his worst game of the season.
Oh, he's had plenty worse. Let's be honest here. Come on now, it wasn't good. He wasn't at his best. But let's be honest here. That first 2 months of Caden Clark was tough to watch. I'm happy that he's getting more confidence. Right, it's clear that like he's taken. I mean, up until last night, maybe. But it's clear in the previous games, in the last month or so leading up to last night, he was growing in confidence. He was getting on the ball more. He was being more decisive. He was getting the ball. He was breaking lines. He was doing the right thing, right? He wasn't a game changer, far from it, but he was at least trying. And last night was kind of a step back just because, again, if Caden Clark doesn't get on the ball, 15, 20 times in the final third, think on the ball, I think if I remember correctly, he had like 20 touches total, right?
Yeah.
If he's not
And
getting
12
on the
points.
ball 15, 20 times in the final third alone, then you're not going to get the best out of him. You're not going to get what really makes him work. So his ability to take people on one-on-one and all that stuff like that. So yeah, I was really disappointed by him. Hennady Sinchuk offered a lot of really interesting things. I still don't think that he's uh ready to kind of take over games yet. I don't think people should be expecting him to, walk in and all of a sudden, oh my God, it's Lamine Yamal. Like, no, 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 relax. He's still growing. He's still learning. Not everyone's a wonder kid immediately and is like, a world beater at that age. So, but he's shown so much composure. He's shown a lot of smoothness. I really like his combination with the Bugai. I think they kind of complement each other very well. And up top, I mean, it's Prince Owusu, right? Lately, I found his performances, goal or not, goal scoring or not, it's been kind of hit or miss. This was one of those games, man, where he was just on top of everything. He understood what was required of him. He understood the kind of mountain that he had to climb in an away game like this, where he was not going to see all that much, and he made, a mountain out of that molehill. And yeah, it's games like this where I'm just like, you know what, this is such a good signing. And we talked about it again earlier in the season. What's a good season for Prince Owusu? 10, 15 goal, 10, 12 goals would be nice. Anything more than that is gravy. Well, he's at 9 in all competitions now, and there's still what, like 10, 15 games left in the season. You included the League's Cup. He very well could hit 15 goals this season. The problem is, those 10, 15 goals should have been a complement to another 15 or so goals from Giacomo Vrioni. He has not played, right? He's at this point, he's played less than Romel Kyoto, right? So it's unfortunate, but you look at Prince Owusu's body of work this season, especially in the last 2 months, and you go, 800K here is a steal, man. 800K is well worth the money that you're getting for someone like Prince Owusu.
Yeah.
And people are comparing him to Chinonso 04.
Oh, come on, get the fuck
up.
No, but it's one of those things. Like, I liked Prince Owusu's game, especially that he scored the goal. I think the penalty was based, on another game or maybe a striker that is maybe taking a day off or not. It's the last minutes. I forgot at what minute it was in the game,
83rd
but it was one of the. I mean, sorry, Elias, which minute was it? Okay,
83rd.
so it was late in the game, and a lot of strikers, a lot of attackers. I think a lot of players, especially at this point of the season, they might be like, "Well, like, what's the worth of running it?" Like, got a guy. I'm tired. I got a guy in front of me. Whatever it may be. He continued running, and that's something that he's shown over and over again, that he's shown that he never stops running. He never stops, and he is exhausted. It's not to say that he's not tired. He's exhausted. You can tell, but he's still running and running all 90 minutes of the game. Now, obviously, it's a little worrisome because you start wondering if he's actually being run to the ground. But so far, it's shown fruit, the patience and the continuous, of deploying him as a starter. Now, obviously, the question starts: what happens when Giacomo Vrioni comes back? What impact would that have on him? But the point being is also, I think Caden Clark played only one half, and we talked about in this show how we did like his hustle. Even in the Canadian Championship, I liked the way he played. I thought it was a mistake to take him out. I thought he was playing really, really well, but maybe they were saving him for the Orlando game. But I didn't like at all his performance. I thought he would get stuck too quick. Now, I'm not going to fully blame this on Caden Clark because I think he's a very skilled player, but there is clearly something that's not working out with Caden Clark, and I think it has to do with the scheme. But it's he was raised in the New York Red Bulls academy and raised in that format, in the scheme of the four, with the back three and him playing as a false 10. And it's just like they haven't been able to find his position. And he had the same thing with Minnesota, where they weren't playing him in his position. They were playing him as the left wing back because he didn't fit. and it's so hard to see because it seems like his stock is going down by himself, and it's almost like he has to find the perfect team in order to be able to perform. And it's only so much, and he's not getting any younger either. I don't know. I think he's 23 right now. So I don't know how old he is right now, but he's getting older, and he needs to. If he, I don't know if he has the goal of jumping back to Europe, or maybe he wants to stay in the MLS. But at some point, he needs to find what works for him. And yesterday, like you said, was a step back, especially considering that there are a lot of, he's had a big stretch of games because of the injury to players. But a lot of these players are coming back, and the transfer window is right around the corner. And these kind of performances make it a lot easier for the team to make a decision as to whether they want to move on with him or not. And also for him, it makes the decision easier. I like what I saw from Hinandi Sinchuk, but I also felt like CF Montreal had no choice, because if they went to the left side, they were going to face Alex Freeman, who is a stud of a player. He is phenomenal. And so the game plan is clear. We're not going to attack that side. We're going to go on the other side where we have the child prodigy that could potentially, have a breakout game. And he did. I thought he did well. I thought he was a lot more physical than before the injury. I felt like he was ready for a physical game. Elias, I don't know what scout report these guys have on Henadi Sinchuk, but it seems like the players in the MLS, since he's been lining up, have made it very clear that they're going to tough him up. They're going to test out his toughness and show him around the ropes of the MLS, because they've been physical with the kid. And that's what I liked about him yesterday. He did get thrown to the ground. He did get sometimes beat up a bit, to get the ball out, but he showed up. He got right back up and got right back to doing what he did. Love the chemistry he has with David Bugai. And I think it could develop into something, like I said, hopefully they continue experimenting. He stays healthy. That way Bugai stays healthy enough to be able to create something on that right side. But he's going to need help. Now let's talk about the substitutions, because there was Tom Pierce, Olger Escobar, and Bryce Duke, right? That came in. No, Bryce Duke stayed on the bench. Bryce Duke did not come in last night, right? And then there was Dante Cini that came in for Henadi Sinchuk, which also is another telling tale as to why Bryce Duke did not play last night, when I think he could have used a minute. But instead, they chose Olger Escobar. He did his debut. What do you think of his debut, Elias?
You didn't really see all that much from him, He didn't do anything badly. He didn't stand out. I mean, he had a really good shout from distance, which again, good. Try something, make a name for yourself, show what you can do. But I think he was more focused on just putting in a good shift and seeing out the result, rather than like, oh, look what I can do. I can do this. I can do this. Look what I can do. No, I think he just kind of focused on being, comfortable, which I'm not mad at. I just find it weird why, there's this belief that he wasn't ready to come in against Forge, against the CPL team when he was needed. But like, okay, we'll throw in against one of the best teams in the East in MLS on the road. I just find that weird. But yeah, I'm happy that Marco Donadel finally gave him his debut. I'm happy that he was trusted. He was put in the number 10 position. He had the chance to actually play with Henadi Sinchuk for like, I think it was just for like 10 minutes, and then Sinchuk came off. Not even 10 minutes, and then Sinchuk came off. But you know what? I'll take it, man. And I was really happy. I think that, what he brought in was concise. I think it's the nicest word I can give. And I'm looking to see more, especially with those two against a more defensive team. When they get more of the ball, I want to see them actually work at a low block and try and find spaces and dribble and do what they do best.
Yeah, I know. And it was, honestly, I don't know how you felt about it, Elias, but seeing a number 29 that doesn't have a Chouanière on the shirt was bizarre to me, because it was almost...
It didn't even like register to me, because I don't know, my Apple TV stream was bugging all night. I don't know if that was the case for you, but I didn't even realize he was number 29. Yeah, that is kind of weird.
It was bizarre world the way I saw it, but I felt like he brought some of that, like, say, I think we've put a word for it in this show, Elias. It's like youthful ignorance, almost like, I'm just here. Sorry?
Youthful exuberance.
Yeah, youthful exuberance. There you go. He's just like, I'm here to have fun. I don't know what's happening, but let's just do this. Like just. And then in the press conference post game, he even thanked us. He was like, "Thank you guys for giving me this space to talk." Like it felt like a kid, just like literally a kid. It's discovering the MLS life. And it was very exciting because he also was very brave. I mentioned about how in the Forge game there was a lack of bravery from the players. There was a lack of, guts of like, let's just shoot the ball because we need to score. No. Ocho Escobar yesterday was like, got the ball, the goal looks good. Let me just take a shot. And that shot was strong. I was like impressed.
Yeah,
I was like, that is
it got me on the edge of my seat, a little bit.
because that was not a Bryce Duke shot. The amount of times that we've seen Bryce Duke shoot from that distance, and it looks almost like a floater, like he's passing it to somebody. It was impressive and exciting. Again, I think you mentioned it. Oh, it was only 45 minutes. 45 minutes doesn't show a lot. We will need a lot more. Not only 45 minutes, but we will need a lot more 45 minutes than that. But yeah, overall, just I think it's exciting to see that the pieces are coming together for CF Montreal. And yeah, I think that it's we still ended up. I mean, CF Montreal still ends up in the bottom of the table, which is almost like a laughing stock. But we got to focus on the good things, Elias. We got to focus on the good things for the rest of the season and just be like, just get a win. I asked Marco Donadell, how important was it to get even a point at Orlando? You just lost the Canadian Championship. Like, how important was it? And he said, it's so important for us. We needed this good performance because you were there Wednesday night at the press conference, Elias, and it was just a heavy environment. It was heavy. There was a big players meeting downstairs in the locker room, and it just felt like the air was sucked out of the building. So it was a big performance. Big performance for everybody. So yeah, mental health matters 1,000%. But guys, again, I know we were supposed to discuss a lot more today. We were excited to give you, but as you guys can see, I'm like hanging by my window, hoping the power comes back at some point. But we do appreciate you guys joining us for episode 232 of the Ball is Round. Next week, Elias, we're taking a little bit of a break. We both have our own personal things going on, so we won't be back next week, but we'll be back the week after. However, we're still going to be bringing you Op Watch on our Patreon. I'm getting a call probably from somebody that's also has their power out. Anyways, so we won't be back next week, but we'll still be giving you Op Watch. We'll still be giving you be interactive in social media. So make sure to follow us on all those platforms, and make sure to follow us on on the Patreon, on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, and all that. Guys, thank you all so much for those that joined us tonight. Thank you so much for those who have joined Patreon. Thank you for all of you who are following us on all social media. We love it, and we see you guys. And we'll see you in 2 weeks from now for episode 233 of The Ball is Round.